it's certainly not giving, like, if you go back and look at what they've done, it's not giving, I hesitate to say luxury, because I'm not saying that that's the audience that they're going after, luxury vibes, you know, but it's not giving elegance. It's not giving food at another level. It's not giving me, like, it's not really fulfilling a fantasy. I am freely going to admit in this video that I was wrong. I was very wrong. I completely misjudged the brand that is Glamlite. At that point, I really was familiarizing myself with the brand, but I didn't know them, and I certainly didn't know them as intimately as I feel like I know them now. If I go back and watch that video, the things that I said about it, I wish I could take back, because honestly, I've just formed an entirely different opinion. Glamlite is likely a brand that you've heard of, especially if you are prevalent on TikTok. I'm not a big TikToker, but I did recently discover TikTok Shop, and now it has pretty much taken over my life. I mean, seriously, like, the deals on there are insane. The deals are stupid over there. Only recently, as they've started to develop this really intense presence on TikTok, have they kind of started to take off, and more people have started to take notice of them. They went from being this kind of niche indie makeup brand that focused on, I believe it was food and drinks kind of in the beginning, to becoming the like brand to do horror collabs. They've done all of these classic horror movies at this point. They've done a lot of different IPs. They did Rick and Morty. They've done some more food stuff. They did chocolate with Hershey's. They've done Scooby-Doo. They've done a whole lot of stuff. And most recently, actually, they just released a big Fresh Prince of Bel-Air collection, which admittedly, I think just looks super fun, really cute. I'm not necessarily going to be picking up anything from the collection, but I admire what they've been doing over there. They also released a Kiss collection, which I was really excited about. And then when the palette was released, I was sort of like, it just wasn't quite pulling me in. But overall, I would say they've been like pumping out those collabs. They've just been, you know, putting out what they think people are gonna want. In particular, with the horror genre, they've really taken that over as their own, and I think they've nailed it. It's not like they're the only makeup brand that's doing horror genre makeup, but they are, I would say, kind of the leading brand at this point. I feel like they've nailed all the packaging, all the design. In my previous video, I spoke about how I felt like maybe they were a little too kitsch, a little too childlike, and I wanted them to elevate more. And I've really just come around to feel like that was a stupid thing to say. Like, in earnest, I think that was kind of dumb, just because as I've gotten to know the brand better, as I've gotten to see what they're doing, and I've kind of understood more of their POV, I realized that elevated luxury, you know, like, that's certainly not their bag. They are putting out really fun makeup, but also fun makeup that delivers. Very much, I would qualify them in that like ColourPop price point, where it's not uber expensive, but it's not like dirt cheap either. And the makeup outperforms the price. I truly feel like, after now playing around with a number of palettes from the brand, that the makeup is better than the price kind of lets on. If you've been on the fence about it because you're like, oh, it seems like maybe it would be in the, you know, cheap category, honestly, I've been really, really surprised by how well they've delivered, both on their matte formulas, their shimmer formulas. I haven't really tried any other makeup from the brand outside of their eyeshadow palettes, so I am interested in maybe blushes or lipsticks or, you know, that kind of thing. But I tend to be more scrupulous, is that the word? I tend to think through more those types of purchases, and I do a lot more eyeshadow purchasing on a whim. So I've amassed a little pile here that I wanted to kind of briefly take you guys through. These are the palettes that I own from them, why I think that you should check them out, why I think I was wrong about the brand in the first place, and what they're doing really, really well as maybe a few things that I think they can still do better. So let's get into it. First off, let me just state for the record that I have no intention of swatching all of these palettes, because it would simply kill me. I do love to do swatches, but not to the point where I am willing to sacrifice my arm and hands to do all of these palettes for one video. So I'm gonna be swatching some of my favorite shades and kind of showing them on camera just to give you a sneak peek. Let's start with the first palette that I have on top. This is the Hershey's Glamlite collab in the cookies and cream palette. They also did a Hershey's like chocolate bar, regular milk I think it was milk chocolate palette. This palette I did pick up through TikTok. I think I got it for like, I want to say it was either $12 or $10, something along those lines, and it was free shipping. This one is incredibly fun for neutral lovers. As you can see, it's kind of like cool toned, dark neutrals, but then you still have some kind of like warm caramelly tones at the top here. There's that icy blue shade that shifts really beautifully on the eyes. It's just a really nice, solid, everyday kind of palette that packs a real punch. I actually love that they included this kind of like caramelly mustard color in here. It's probably my favorite addition to the palette that I think makes it a lot more versatile. What's incredible about the Glamlite shadows is that they honestly are some of the most sparkly shades that I have, which is crazy for me to think about because I have a lot of eyeshadow and I have a lot of sparkly eyeshadow because I am a sparkle girly and I love it. I love the sparkle. These surprised me. Like, I did not expect them to just be so intense. From what I saw on, I think it was on Instagram, I saw them do a little behind the scenes video about like how they make their super sparkly eyeshadows. And the short answer is they put in like 3 times the amount of sparkle that I've seen other brands put in as far as their mixtures for when they make these shadows. And that's why they are indeed so sparkly, because they like tripled the amount of sparkle. So, you know, get it, Giselle. Just you do you. It's working. So I'm gonna swatch a few of the shades. On the whole, the sparkle shades are very creamy. They are pretty like just emollient. I would suggest primer for sure, and they might not be the best formula for you if you have oily eyelids. I will say that too. So that's just a few shades that I really like from the Cookies and Cream palette. I don't believe that's one that you can still get from the site. I think you would have to look for it through a reseller, but it is a really, really great neutral leaning palette that again packs a lot of sparkle. I feel like it's the perfect palette to do a smoky eye, especially if you want to do one that has a lot of glitter. Definitely check it out. Maybe if you're interested on like a Mercari type of page, just don't overpay for it, okay? I wouldn't pay more than like 15 bucks if you can find it. So the next 2 palettes are from their Scooby-Doo collab. They did a larger palette. I think it was after they released these, they did a second like Scooby-Doo collection and they did a bigger palette, but I really fell in love with these little smaller palettes that they came out with. I picked them up about a year ago, maybe a little less than a year ago, and I did get them on like a super sale. I think it was like buy one, get one. The secret to Glamlite, in my opinion, is wait for a sale, look on TikTok shop if you can, and like don't overpay because they're always doing deals. I mean, I just love it so much. Look at how beautiful. This is just such an ideal color story for me. I love the mustardy, mucky green. I love the deeper greens. I love the sparkly shades that pair with each of the matte shades. And I really enjoy this format of like matte to sparkle ratio, you know, that it's half matte, half sparkle. I just think that they did such a nice job with these, and the packaging I actually really like. I'm not a Scooby-Doo fan. You'll note as I go through these, none of the IPs are ones that I necessarily like super adore. You know, I didn't pick them up for that reason, but you know, game recognized game. Like, these are nicely designed packages. I love the way that they did this kind of like neon effect around the characters. I love how they have the like raised lettering. Just the layouts are really nice, and I love that they have that squishy, soft matte packaging that just feels really good to hold. They feel really just like well done. So I enjoyed this a lot. And the same goes for the other one in the collection. I think this is called the Creeps and Crawls palette. And this one, as you can see, is like very purple, blue, magenta, really, really beautiful as well. This color story didn't jump out to me the way that the Rutro Raggy one did, but I still love it, and I think that it's a beautiful palette. My one note about this is that when I did use it, I think it was definitely like this shade or the combination therein that did stain the crap out of my eyelids. Like, I can't lie. And I'm not marking it against the palette, but it does make me hesitant to use these shades again, just because the amount of staining was pretty intense. I looked like I had pink eye after, and I really washed my face. So I did not have that same problem with any of the shades in the Rutro Raggy palette. I did actually with the Rutro Raggy palette, this green look that I still think about, because I remember when I did it, I was like, oh wow, who is she? Like, who's that girl? I don't know. It was just like, it was like an intense, different kind of look for me. I really went heavy in the green. So I'll swatch a few of these shades for you as well so you can see some of my favorites. I love that like lime chartreusey shade in the Ruh-Roh Raggy palette. So speaking of swatches, that is my main issue that I've had with the brand. They are not great at showcasing their own eyeshadows. I don't know what it is about the way that they photograph or swatch, but they never seem to be able to capture how actually truly beautiful the makeup is in their promotional photos, which I found completely dulling, unappetizing, did not show off the sparkle, did not show off the variety of shades. But it was after I saw other creators showing off the palette where I was like, oh wow, that is probably the biggest area where I have major feedback. Fire whoever you've got doing, you know, swatch photography of your eyeshadows and hire somebody else. Next palette. So this was another one where I saw it initially and had a very kind of negative reaction to it. I was like, that looks dull, that looks cold, that looks flat. The truth is that it could not be more the opposite of that. This is the Ghost Face palette, and I have absolutely fallen head over heels in love with this palette, especially if you are a cool toned lover and you are looking for something to do everyday looks. This is your girl. Like, it has everything that you need, including some of those lighter shades to help blend out. It has great inner corner highlight shades. You get really deep and dark. You have that delicious, like, sparkly black that is absolutely beautiful. And this palette has one of my absolute favorite shades in it of all the palettes, and that's this one called Mirror Gleam. I am obsessed with that shade. I think it is one of the most beautiful shades that the brand has done. Again, when they showed it online, I was like, ugh. Like, I actually thought it looked ugly. I wasn't into it. And then again, through seeing other creators use it, showcase it better, pick it up, I was absolutely interested in it and floored by it. And I think this is one that I also got through TikTok on a sale. The sparkly shades in here are so beautiful, especially since I've been, like I said, I've been kind of like in my cool toned era. I love that there's a little bit more subtlety in these shades than in some of their other palettes. A lot of their palettes are very like kapow, which is really nice, obviously, if you're doing a certain kind of makeup. But if you're like me and you're doing a lot more elevated but still kind of everyday makeup, or what I would call everyday makeup, that can feel like a lot. It can feel unapproachable. What I like about the Ghost Face palette is that it does kind of feel like the brand's answer to, oh, you like cool tones and you want to do kind of an everyday look? This is what you might like. Okay, so this is my baby girl. This is Betty Boop. Again, as I stated, was not sold on this palette by the brand in and of itself. It was Xander Bear that really sold me on this baby. I will definitely put information to link to their channel below. The Betty Boop palette is one that they came out with for Valentine's Day. Cannot tell you enough how stunning. It does have the perfect sort of gradient from light to dark. My only complaint is that it does not have one of those annoying light beigey peachy shades that I do use for blending out, but it's fine. I don't need 8 million of those. I can pull out another palette if I need to do like a blending of an edge, but it's not in this palette is the only thing I will say. But it is so beautiful. Oh my God, this little purple iridescent shade is a really, really great topper shade. It just has so much sparkle in it and is really subtle on the eyes. This one reminds me a little of Trinket from Cleona. It doesn't have the blue sparkle flip to it, but it is really, really sparkly. It does have multicolored sparkles in it and it has that really beautiful, vibrant peach to it. The mattes in here are absolutely like just delicious. I love them so much. This is probably my favorite palette that I've picked up from the brand. They just did a perfect iteration on a Valentine's color story with this one. And of course, the theming of Betty Boop for Valentine's Day is also perfect. The shimmer shade in all of their palettes is kind of the same. It's always the same. It definitely isn't like varied from palette to palette. Occasionally you'll get shades that are slightly more pigmented or slightly more, you know, multicolored sparkle, but the formula is more or less the same. It has that super emollients, it's very sheeny, and it has a lot of glossy sort of sparkle to it. It's not silicone-y, but it's very, very creamy and emollient. I have found it to be just such a fun formula for me, and I love how it looks on the eyes. And then the last palette that I have, was one that I picked up during another sale that they had. I cannot remember which sale it was, but I don't think I've bought any of their palettes full price is the point that I'm trying to make. But this is the Camp Crystal Lake Friday the 13th palette. It is a very dark take on kind of a rainbow color story. As you can see, it really does kind of cover all the types of rainbow shades you might want, but in a very deep, dark, moody, campfire-y kind of way. Same thing, sparkle shades are really popping off, and those deep dark mattes are really nice and easy to work with. And this is the palette that I used for my eye look today. I used the shade Death Curse, this dark matte sort of olive brown, and the shade Summer Camp, which is more of this like sparkly topaz color. And then I used a little bit of the lightest shade, Jason Lives, on my inner corner. I think pretty much all, oh wait, I also used Unlucky Day. I mixed a little of that matte in as well, so there's a bit more rosiness on my inner corner. This one is, I believe, still available, and I know that as far as their horror genre dominance, they just announced that they're going to be doing a big Halloween collab, so their next big horror collection is going to be for the Halloween series. I am very curious to see what they're gonna do with that. I will admit I'm a big Halloween fan. This is the last palette that I have. I'm still sort of exploring the palette. I honestly haven't played with it too much. The light sort of sparkly purple is quite pretty. It almost feels like it doesn't quite belong because it's very like soft and feminine compared to a lot of the other shades, which fall more into almost like a grungy kind of category. I do absolutely love the really, really intense red in here. New Blood is super beautiful. It has a little bit of sparkle in it, but it's very subtle. So that is my current Glamlite collection. I do have my eyes on them in the future to see what they're coming out with, and as I noted, I think there are other pieces of makeup that they're coming out with that I'd be interested in trying, but eyeshadow is my biggest vice, and so it's the thing that I usually fall for, and I'm always keeping an eye out for what palettes they're coming out with, just because I know now that the formula is pretty trustworthy, pretty reliable, and really beautiful. It's impactful, sparkly shadows, it's really nice blendable but pigmented mattes. It's just the full package. I think that the brand has a lot more of a POV now than I ever thought that they did, or that I gave them credit for when I talked about them previously. I love that they've been able to sort of maintain, at least for now, their really good entry-level price point, because I hope that they'll pull in more people into their little like makeup lovers world, and more people will get to try the brand because they're not overly expensive. If I had to give criticism outside of the fact that I don't think that they do the most amazing product photography, I would say that it does feel a little bit one note at this point, because most of the shades that I've tried from them as far as their shimmer formula fall within the same category. I haven't seen them do anything super shifty. I haven't seen them do multi-chromes. I haven't seen them sort of dip their toe into any kind of other formulations for their standout shadows. And that may be something that they're thinking about in the future. I think it's great that they've nailed what they're doing now and made it pretty much the best it can be, I think. But I'd love to see them keep innovating in the products that they're coming out with, not just in the collaborations and the packaging, which, as I said, I think they're already doing a really great job with. So I'm gonna eat my words from before. I'm gonna say that I think Glamlite is doing a bang up job. I really like what they're putting out there. Let me know if you're thinking about trying them, what you'd like to try from them, if you have tried them, what you love from the brand, what you like or dislike about what they're putting out there. Of course, leave it in the comments below. I would love to know. That's just a little sneak peek at what I've got going on in the Glamlite world, and if I have more things that come into my collection in the future, I will be sure to let you know. I want to thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being here. If you did like this video, please give it a like before you leave it. It helps me super so much. And please consider subscribing if you haven't already, because then you get to know when new videos are coming out. I'll pop up in your subscription feed. Sorry, sometimes it's so long between videos, but I'm still here. I'm still making videos. So if you subscribe, you'll know when I make a new video and you can come and watch it. And with that, I want to say, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, whatever you are doing, and I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Bye.